Hi guys, welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about linear perspective. We are going to be completing a 1-point perspective column, 2-point, and a 3-point perspective, talking about the differences and completing examples together. So before we kind of jump into that, we're just going to go over a couple terms to begin with. So what we're going to need for all three are our horizon line. So this is the line that is going to separate the sky from the earth in our drawings. We're going to need a vanishing point, or in our 2- and 3-point perspective drawings, we're going to need multiple vanishing points. And our vanishing point is the point where everything is going to connect back to make it look like it's receding back in space. And then lastly, the last term that we are going to be using is an orthogonal line. So this is just a fancy way to say those diagonal lines that connect back to our vanishing point. So we're going to be starting off on our right column over here with 1-point perspective. So for today, what you're going to need is a pencil of some sort. Doesn't matter if it's a drawing pencil or mechanical, an eraser. And then if you have a ruler, you're going to want to use a ruler. Since I am at home currently, I do not have a ruler, so I'm going to be using a cutting board. You're just going to need anything with a straight edge. So anything you can find around your house, the side of a book, cardboard box side, anything that has a nice straight edge you can use today. So the first thing that we're going to be creating across our whole page is a horizon line. So once again, this is the line that separates the sky from the earth. So with my pencil, with my cutting board, or if you have a ruler, that is more ideal than a cutting board. I'm going to go ahead, I'm just using my pencil pushing against the side of my cutting board to create a nice straight line, roughly about halfway. I didn't measure, but this is once again that line that separates the sky from the earth. So in 1-point perspective, we are going to be having one vanishing point. So that is why it's called 1-point perspective, because it just has that one focal point that all of our orthogonal lines are going to be receding back to. So for our steps, the first thing is a horizon line. We have this across our page. The second is we need to be adding one vanishing point. So for today, I'm going to be placing my vanishing point kind of on the edge over here. You can either do a small dot or like an X marks the spot, just a small dot, so you know you need to connect everything back to this 1 point for our 1-point perspective. Our next step in 1-point perspective is to draw the exterior shape. So whether you are using a square, a rectangle, a triangle, whatever you are using for your specific drawing. Today I'm going to be using squares and rectangles. So I'm going to create a square sitting on my horizon line. And so that way it is touching the horizon line over here. So with our 1-point perspective, we always start with drawing that exterior shape. So our next step, we're going to need your ruler, or in my case, a cutting board, anything with your straight lines. We are going to be connecting the edges of our shape back to our one vanishing point. So as I'm doing this, I'm going to check all of my corners. So I'm lining up my vanishing point with each edge down here, since both of my bottom edges on my square are touching the horizon line. They are already technically connecting back to my vanishing point, so I don't need to redraw that. For today's demo, I'm not going to be drawing through my shape. So as you're kind of looking at your own paper, I don't want you to draw directly through. So as I am connecting these, I'm just going to double check. I'm lining everything up with my single vanishing point off to the side. Right now I'm checking this corner up top, and this is what I mean by cutting through our shape. So we're not going to want to do that today. So now I'm going to just check this last edge. This one we will connect. So I'm going to line up that edge of the shape to my vanishing point. It's kind of hard to see from this angle right now. And I'm going to just connect the two with a nice straight line like so. Okay, so this is our orthogonal line. So that diagonal line that connects our shape or our line back to our vanishing point. Okay, so now we need to determine our side of our cube. So with 1 point perspective, everything is going to connect back to our 1 point. So with this, I'm going to be switching to a green pen just to show you guys with a demo. Everything is going to be parallel for 1 point perspective, meaning when I'm creating a cube, if I'm creating my side of the cube over here, which is where I'm going to be doing so, this line or this edge that I'm doing in green, we are going to want to create a parallel line to our green line right there. So I'm going to take my my straight edge, aka my cutting board. I'm lining it up, and this is where you get to determine how wide of a building, how wide of a cube you want to create. So by kind of pulling, you can make sure that it is parallel. If you want a really big cube, you can make your line go all the way out. For today's purposes, I'm going to make it relatively small, but once again, I want to make a parallel line from this green edge. So I'm going to make a straight line up and down, like so. And then from here, I'm going to be taking my eraser. This extra orthogonal line we no longer need. So I'm going to go ahead, don't mind me, I'm going to turn the paper, and I'm going to erase this. So I'm erasing that orthogonal line. So I'm just left with my original shape that I created and this side. So because of my orthogonal, this line is pointing back to my vanishing point, making it appear that this edge is receding back into space. So this is a 1 point perspective cube. Okay, I'm going to do one more. The rules are the same exact thing whether I do it above or below. So I'm going to do this one a little bit faster. I'm going to walk through it. So the first thing, I already have my horizon line. I have my one vanishing point. I'm going to create this cube down below to begin with, or actually let's make a rectangle. So I'm going to start with my exterior shape. Okay. From here, now I need to check all my corners. So I'm going to grab my straight edge. I'm always making sure as I'm doing this that both the edge and my vanishing point are touched by my straight edge. So this one doesn't cut through my shape, so I'm going to go ahead and connect the two. I'm going to check this other corner. This one does go through the shape, so I'm not going to connect to that one. This edge up top, I can connect because it does not go through my shape. And then lastly, I'm going to connect this corner because it does not go through my shape as well. I'm going to line that up. And I'm connecting that. So this time we can see two sides of our cube, where last we could only see one. So I'm going to grab my pen just to make it a little bit more obvious this time as well. So I need to create two parallel lines for my sides of my cube. I'm going to create one parallel that's going straight up and down here. And then I'm going to be creating a second one that is going horizontal. So I'm going to highlight that in green. And one important thing to kind of point out is right here. So both of my lines in my rectangle are meeting with a 90-degree angle. So as I'm creating my parallel lines, I also need them to touch and create a 90-degree angle. So I'm going to grab my cutting board or whatever straight edge you are using. I'm going to kind of slide this, and however wide you want it, let's make this one a little bit bigger just for fun. I'm going to create a straight up and down line, but I'm going to stop once I touch the other. So I'm only going to be making a line in between these two sections, like so. Okay, so it's parallel to this side here. Okay, now I'm going to be doing the same thing but with this top line. So I need, since these ones touch at a 90-degree angle, I need to have my lines start touching this one. So I'm going to actually turn my paper just for my angle. It's a little bit easier to see. I'm going to line up my cutting board or my straight edge with this line, and I'm going to pull it back until I see that it is touching my green line over here. So I'm going to make a straight line. Okay, and we now have our two sides of my rectangle cube. So I'm going to go ahead, erase these back orthogonal lines that I no longer need. I'm going to shade this just so it's a little bit easier for you guys to see. How this is really going back in space. So once again, this is 1 point perspective that we just completed. Okay, so this is our 1 point perspective zone. So on your own, create a 1 point perspective cube that looks like it's going back into space, connecting to your one vanishing point. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to now move on to 2 point. Our steps are pretty similar, but they have some differences. So we start with our horizon line. We have already completed that on our page. So I'm going to check off that on the list. We are going to be using the same vanishing point over here as one of our vanishing points, but this one, once again, 2 point perspective, needs 2 vanishing points. So I'm going to create a second one on my opposite edge down here. So I now have 2 vanishing points kind of on opposite edges. The further away your vanishing points are, that means you can fit more in your on your paper. The closer together they are, that means the angles are going to be very, very harsh and steep. So it's just up to you what you want. So for 2 point perspective, we are going to be starting with a vertical line instead of an exterior shape. So I'm going to be grabbing my straight edge, and I'm going to draw a vertical line. Let's right there. Once again, we're going to start with just one, and then we'll create a second. This one is going to be connecting back to both vanishing points. So everything on this half of my line will connect back to my first vanishing point. The same thing will happen with my second vanishing point over here. So I'm going to go ahead and I will be doing this in pen, but for today's purposes, I'm going to be drawing my sidewalls first. So we have, this is kind of our middle line that we started with. I'm going to be determining how wide I want my buildings to be. So the first thing I'm going to do, I have that my middle line. These second walls that we are creating now, these are also going to be completely vertical lines. So they're going to be parallel to our original one. This is where you get to determine how wide of a building you want. If you want it to be super wide, we can make one, let's make one edge pretty wide. Once again, completely vertical line. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Maybe we'll make this one a little bit thinner. And we're going to draw a vertical line. Okay. So now starting with our middle line, I'm going to be connecting the top back to my first vanishing point. And as soon as I kind of run through my other line, I'm going to stop. That way I don't muck up my paper. So I just connected this little top part here. I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. I'm going to be connecting my top point to this vanishing point. As soon as I kind of hit this line, I'm going to stop. So I'm making sure that they're lining up. And I stop. Okay. So everything on this half, I'll go over this in green so you can kind of see a little bit better. So everything that connects back to this vanishing point is green, and everything that connects back to this one we'll say is going to be pink. Just for